Hello there, my lovely jewelry makers. I'm Christina of CSLdesigns, and in today's tutorial I'm going to show you how you can basically make your own lazy daisy with things you have at home, so you can start doing your own Viking knit without having to buy anything new. So if you want to learn how you can make your own tool, then keep watching. So first of all, we're going to need some wire. Now I'm just using the wire that I'm going to do the actual Viking weave with, and this is a 0.4 mil. Now then, of course, we're going to need the mandrel or dowel that we're going to make the Viking weave on, and that can literally be anything you have handy that's round and smooth. In this case here, I'm using an 8mm crochet hook because the bottom part of the hook is long enough to be able to make the Viking weave on, and also it doesn't have to be a specific size, it really just depends on the final look that you want. We'll also need some tape to help hold things together. In this case here, I'm using some electrical tape, and then we need something we can wrap our wire around to create the tool. In this case here, I'm using my business card, which is just like a credit card size, but you can use anything you have handy that'll give the same result. And then we just need a couple of tools, so I've got my flush cutter so we can cut the wire, and tweezers nose pliers to help manipulate the wire. That can also be chain nose pliers or flat nose pliers. So let's get it all ready and make our tool so we can start our Viking weave. So I'm going to grab my wire here, and it's still attached to the reel, and then I'm also going to grab my business card or whatever you're using for this. Then we need to place the end of the wire sticking out a little bit at the top there, so we have a bit of a tail on top of the card here, and then I'm going to start wrapping this around. So come down over the front, bring it up behind, down over again, next to the first wrap, around the bottom, come up behind. So basically each of these wraps will represent a loop in the final tool. So right now I've got 2, which means I have 2 loops in the final tool. Come down and back up, and I'm just laying them there flat right next to each other. And for this one, I want to end up with 6 loops. Now, of course, you can make more or less depending on how you want your Viking weave to be. So that's completely up to you. It's the same basic principle. So I have 5 wraps currently. So I need to do 1 more. Come down, back up behind. And then again, just let this wire stick out the front. And I can then go in, cut off the excess. Just leave a short little tail again. And then what we need to do now is make sure we hold on to all these wires, as I'm then going to start pushing the card through, or rather pushing the wires off the card. Make sure all these wires don't unravel. So just keep hold of them and then get rid of the card here. And then we have all these wraps together, and then I'm going to use these tails to wrap around the midpoint so they stay together. So just grab one of them and start wrapping it around the midpoint here, because then you can also let go and they won't come undone. So just keep wrapping it until we have no more left. And then I'm just going to take the other length here and do the same thing. You can just wrap over the top of them. It doesn't have to be neat or anything, because this is just the tool that we're making, and this is going to get discarded once we've done the Viking weave. So we now have the beginning part of our tool, and from here I'm then just going to focus on this end. So we need to start separating out these loops that we made. So just take one at a time, bring it out and away from the others, and we need to start kind of putting them into position. So I'm going to put them kind of next to each other, but evenly spaced all the way around. So something like this here. Now it doesn't have to be perfect yet, because we can keep adjusting it. Now what I personally then like to do is to try and get these a bit more secure and also somewhat even lengths, because it can get a little bit uneven as we're working with it. So from here I'm going to grab my tweezer nose pliers and just working with one at a time here. I'm going to go in and grab towards the end of one of the loops, but make sure I leave a gap there so that stays a loop, and otherwise I'm just going to start twisting this. So that's going to make this length that we're making here with the loop on the end more solid. And also this is where we can adjust the lengths if we need to make any of them a bit shorter or longer than the other ones to get them as even as possible. So just keep twisting until you feel like it's more solid, and it will then also help hold it in place more where we place them here in relation to each other. But do make sure that we have a little gap there at the end so we have the loop effect. Now just move on to the next one. Again, grab towards the end but leave a little opening, and then start twisting that. And then because we've already done the first one, as we're doing the others, we can then start to compare the length. So obviously this one here I can compare to the one next to it and get them as even as possible, because if one is a bit too long you can just twist it a bit more and that'll then gradually shorten it. Move on to the next one, grab towards the end and same thing, start twisting this. Now don't get too worried about it being perfect with the lengths, just get them as even as possible. So I now have 3 twisted there. Go on to the next one and just keep working your way doing the same thing with all of them. And this is then what it looks like when I've done all of them. You can see they're already a lot more sturdy, and we also have have the little loops at the ends, and they're pretty even in length as well. So before my next step here, what I'm just going to do is grab my tape, and I just want to cut a piece ready so we can just grab it when we need to. And you just need a length of a few centimeters. So cut that off and just put it on something until we need it, and then grab your little wire contraption again, and I'm just taking my crochet hook or whatever mandrel or dowel you're using. Then I want to place this right on the end and start bending these little legs down the sides of the crochet hook in my case. So just do opposites, bend them down so they come down along the side, and just try and keep the wire there in the middle at the end, and just do opposites all the way around. So it's something like that. And then I just want to try and separate these lengths out somewhat evenly against each other as well. So the distance between them is pretty even all the way around. Again, it doesn't have to be perfect, just do it as well as you can. And then from here is where I'm going to grab my tape that I cut ready, and that's what we're going to use to basically hold these wires in place and onto the tool, because obviously otherwise this is just going to pop right off. So just hold it the best you can and place your tape on the legs there and on the tool, and just start bringing it all the way around. Try and keep the wires in place and as even as possible. And obviously once it's done here, some of the wires might have moved a little bit. Like you can see this one moved very close to another one, so just kind of push it back into place. Again, just roughly, it doesn't have to be perfect, just as even as you can. So that's basically the tool done. But what I also just like to do at the end here is you can see some of them are a little bit shorter or longer than the others. So I like to just kind of even that up by just going one at a time. This seems to be my shortest one, so I'm just going to kind of go from that and then grab the next one at the top here with my pliers and just pull it up a little bit, and then just go around and do that with all of them. Now again, it doesn't have to be perfect. I just like to get it as even as possible before I start my Viking weave, and that's what the tape is there for, then to help hold it in place when we're happy with how it sits. And there you can then see it's more even, and this is the perfect starting point. So now we can just grab our wires and start making our Viking weave, and I will be showing that in a separate video on how to do Viking weave if you're not familiar with that. But this is then the tool that we can use for it, that you can easily make yourself if you don't have the lazy daisy. So I hope you enjoyed the tutorial for this homemade little tool so you can start your Viking weave without having to buy anything new. And like I said, if you're new to that, I will have a separate tutorial for that. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching this one, and I'll see you in the next one.